live from the new sports betting capital of the world.
You might be from Texas, but I'm from New Jersey.
Benny Ricciardi is here to break down the day's betting board for you.
Let's go, Jerry. Go!
Taking a first look at the day's bets, it's time for the FTN Betting Show. Welcome to the FTN Betscast for Tuesday, July 5th, here at FTN Bets and sponsored by our good friends over at Sleeper. Sleeper is the fastest growing fantasy platform today with millions of players, and now you can win on Sleeper by playing in their new over-under game too. It's super easy to play. So first, in any sport, you're going to choose two or more players that you like and pick whether they're going to go over or under their listed total. So for example, today, it could be the number of hits that somebody gets in baseball, the number of strikeouts that a pitcher has, maybe the number of runs that somebody's going to score. And then you're going to choose an amount of money you want to enter into the contest. If you pick correctly, you win anywhere from 2 times your money all the way up to 20 times your money if you go 5 out of 5 and get them all correct. But the main reason why I'm excited about this over-under game on Sleeper, it's the only app where you can join with your buddies and play together. It has a built-in group chat where I can see what you're playing, you can see what I'm playing, and we could all see what the guy who won 3 days in a row in our group is playing. And it's insanely fun when everybody is riding it out together and rooting for the same things. So stop what you're doing now and download the Sleeper app to play in their new over-under game. Have some fun with your friends and make a little bit of money in the process. On your mobile phone, you can join our listener group by clicking on sleeper.com/FTNbets, and they will automatically match your first deposit up to $100. Again, go to the description in this podcast, sleeper.com/FTNbets, and get that $100 match on your first deposit. There are terms and conditions that apply, so see Sleeper's terms of use for the details. We're going to continue talking about our NFL betting preview here today, and the team that we're going to be talking about is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles were 9-8 last season. They snuck into the playoffs pretty much on the last day by edging out New Orleans for the final wild card spot. Let's see. Right now, we have Jeff Ratcliffe on his FTN Bets season win total preview, has the Eagles projected for 9 wins this year. 9 wins is a little bit below what we're seeing out here in the market. The number that's out here in the market is 9.5 wins for the Eagles. And again, we're already starting to see some of the betting move in that direction. You could play the over 9.5 wins on the Eagles here today at even money plus 100 over on FanDuel. So if you like the Eagles to get 10 wins or more, even money on FanDuel, best price you can get on that one. If you want to play the under on that, the under is also at even money plus 100 over on DraftKings. So you can get an over or under on this 9.5 number at 100, even money, depending on which way you guys want to go with it. Most books out there in the market right now, like BetMGM has this number at 9.5, minus 110, minus 110. A lot of the other books are pretty similar, minus 105, minus 115. Again, you get, plus 100 and minus 120 on FanDuel and DraftKings. The over, FanDuel, plus 100, under, DraftKings, plus 100. That's the best price to play the Eagles on, depending on which direction you want to go here. Unibet, Sugar House, and Bet Rivers has it at 10.5 wins, and predictably it is juiced up. The over is plus 170, and the under 10.5 wins is minus 215. So this is a really good number for the Eagles here. I think it's right on the money. Our edge is a little bit to the under, and again, if we have an edge and we're getting it at even money, that means we have a little bit of value there. So I like that under plus 100 on DraftKings, my favorite way to play the Eagles win total this year. Next thing we're going to look at, will the Eagles make the playoffs? Yes, minus 150, no, plus 123. Those are the best prices we can find out there in the market. So again, the Eagles were 9-8 last year. They're projected for 9 wins again this year. They edged out New Orleans on like the final day of the season in order to get that last playoff spot last year. And 9 wins is about what it's going to take to get to the bottom of the playoff ladder rung. The Steelers got in at 9-7-1 last year, knocking out a couple 9-8 teams, and the Colts, the Chargers, and the Dolphins. The Eagles at 9-8 knocked out the New Orleans Saints last year, who missed the playoffs at, with that same record. So if you think the Eagles are going to go over here, I think it's better for you to just play. If you think they're going to go over 9.5 wins here, I think it's better for you to just play that over on FanDuel at even money rather than take the yes minus 150 that's available on multiple sites here right now. obviously the payoff of plus 100 is better than the payoff of minus 150. Now, can the Eagles make the playoffs with only 9 wins again? Yeah, they can. Like I said, we saw teams with 9 wins make the playoffs last year. But even then, like if you think they're going to get 9 wins or less, you're still better off playing the under on DraftKings at plus 100 rather than the over on FanDuel at plus 100, and kind of stay away from, looking at making the playoffs at minus 150. The reason for that is if they end on exactly 9 wins, that doesn't guarantee a playoff berth. 10 wins last year guaranteed a playoff berth. 9 wins last year, 2 of the 6 teams that had 9 wins made it to the playoffs. So, I mean, that's really the way you got to kind of consider this is if they finish with 9 wins here, they still only have about a 33% chance to make the playoffs. So really, should they make the playoffs, should probably be closer to minus 200. So I don't think we're getting a lot of value there on that minus 150. Now, if you think the Eagles are going to completely underperform, now you have a question of, do you want to play them at plus 123 not to make the playoffs, or do you want to play them under 9.5 wins at plus 100 on DraftKings? That's a legitimate question there. I think I would rather play them to not make the playoffs at plus 123 than play the under on that 9.5 wins over at DraftKings there. Because when you really think about it, like I said, if they don't get to 10 wins, if they get to 10 wins, then they're going to make the playoffs. You're going to lose both of those bets anyway. If they only get to 9 wins, though, again, there's a very small chance that they make the playoffs with just 9 wins. So it does make more sense to look at them as, somebody who might not make the playoffs if they get 8. They're definitely not going to make it, or most likely not going to make it with 8. With 9, even then, it's only like a 33% chance. So I like that. No, the Eagles will not make the playoffs plus 123 here. Because again, even finishing at 9 and 8 puts you in a group of probably 2 or 3 other teams that you're going to be fighting for. And you have to really hope that you win the tiebreakers and you have all the things going right in your direction in order for you to be able to win it here. And I just don't see the Eagles as that team. So the no plus 123, definitely where I want my money. If you're going to bet the yes, you might as well just bet the over on the 9.5 wins and, figure that that's probably the better payout for you there. So that's the way I'm looking at the win totals here for the Eagles. Like I said, I like the under. And because I like the under, my favorite way to play this is going to be no, the Eagles will not make the playoffs for plus 123. So let's take a look at some of the other numbers here for the Eagles. The Eagles to win the NFC East. This is as high as plus 230. PointsBet is the place you can get the high number at plus 230. It is as low as plus 165 over on DraftKings. We talked about this last week when we talked about the the Commanders and the New York Giants here. The Eagles are the second shortest price to win this division behind the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys are the shortest price, somewhere in the like minus 125 to minus 130, 40 range, somewhere around there. But then when we look the other way, like I said, when we look at, the second team with the Eagles, they're as low as plus 165 on DraftKings. Best price you could play them at is plus 230 over on PointsBet. I think that's a pretty decent margin there that you have. If Dallas does wind up not playing well, I don't know. I mean, I know the Giants made a lot of moves, but I'm not really convinced that they're a good team. Washington is a good young team. They have a good young core, but I don't think they're ready to take that next step either. Dallas is still the class of this division to me. And if Dallas loses, the Eagles are the team that's most likely to step up. And people are like, oh, yeah, Dallas is better. They are, right? But what if Dak Prescott gets hurt? What if CeeDee Lamb gets hurt? They have a lot of people banged up in their receiver core. They got rid of one of their guys in Cooper. There are lots of things that you can look at here and say, if they lose one guy here or one guy there, could really affect the way this team goes. So I don't think it's crazy to take the Eagles at plus 230 to win the NFC East. I think they are the second best team. I think they are clearly head and shoulders above the Giants and the Commanders. So really, it's just about them and the Dallas Cowboys. And the Cowboys, again, the Cowboys are not a lock to win this. It's not like the Cowboys, there's 1 or 2 guys that get injured on the Cowboys, and they could be a 500 team or below. So I don't think it's crazy to look at the Eagles here. So I think the Eagles plus 230 on PointsBet, which is a nice price to win the NFC East, is something worth betting on here. The spread on them to win the NFC as a whole is a little bit tighter. The best price we can get, plus 1,400 over on FanDuel, plus 1,100 on DraftKings is the low. So only 300 basis points, from the high to the low in that market right there. I mean, listen, If they make it, do they have a chance to win it? I, honestly, I really don't think so. There are better teams in the NFC than the Eagles and the Cowboys, in my opinion. A lot of those teams in the West, I would take over them. We don't know how Green Bay is going to be losing, Devonta Adams, but you do still have Aaron Rodgers, one of the best quarterbacks of our generation here. You do have a really good running back in Aaron Jones. They got some depth in the running back position as well. They got a pretty solid defense. There are reasons to think that the Green Bay Packers are going to be a good team again this year as well. So I just don't see the Eagles winning the NFC no matter what they do here. I don't want to bet on them, even at plus 1,400. I don't think that's enough. This number would have to be above 25-1 to get me interested. And we're talking like half of that on average based on, what most of these books are putting out here there. Same thing with the Super Bowl. I don't think the Super Bowl odds are high enough for me to really want to get down on them. Eagles to win the Super Bowl, 30-1 plus 3,000. You can get that number on Caesars, FanDuel, Unibet, Sugar House, and Bet Rivers. All have them at that 30-1 number. The low for the Eagles to win the Super Bowl is 25-1. DraftKings has them there. BetMGM has them there. So that's what we're looking at there for the Eagles. If any of you Eagles fans out there want to put some money down on them, Caesars, FanDuel, plus 3,000, Unibet, Bet Rivers, Sugar House. Best place to go over there and play that. I'd rather play them to win the Super Bowl at plus 3,000 than to win the NFC at plus 1,400. This way, if they win the NFC, you're already holding a 30-1 ticket for them to win the Super Bowl. And you could always go in the other direction and, kind of do what you got to do in order to, hedge that out when you get to the Super Bowl if you have a, potential winner there. So now let's move on and talk about some of the player props, because there are some very interesting player prop questions for both betting and fantasy that we have to discuss with the Philadelphia Eagles here. So Jalen Hurts, starting quarterback for the Eagles, he had an up and down season last year, but at the end of the year, especially if you're a fantasy guy or somebody who's betting on some of these props, the numbers look pretty good for him. He played in 15 games last year, threw for 3,144 yards. So you're looking at about 210 yards per game passing there. Is it great? No. But again, he was a rookie. They kind of protected him a little bit. They went a little run heavy, and he still wound up throwing for over 3,000 yards. So it's not horrible. The number for his passing yards this year is 3,450. So again, he played 15 games last year. If he plays all 17 this year, or if he plays 16 this year, you're probably putting him right there at that number. So what you really have to decide is, do you think they're going to open the offense up a little more for him this year? Is he going to be able to throw the ball a little more? Are they going to give him a little more trust to sling it down the field? And I think the answer to that question is yes. Because remember, they had a draft pick last year in DeVonta Smith, and they added A.J. Brown in the offseason. So the receiving core got a lot better. I mean, yes, last year you had guys like Jalen Reagor, who never really panned out after being a first-round pick. Quez Watkins, I think, was their second leading receiver with like 650-ish yards or something like that. Now you're putting two studs in there with A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith. And you have a stud running back in Dallas Goedert. You have some pass-catching, a stud tight end in Dallas Goedert. You have some pass-catching running backs that are out there as well. So I do think Hurts, if he stays healthy, can go over that 3,450 number. But if he stays healthy is the thing. He's going to need every game that they play next year in order to get over this number. He's going to need to play in all 17. If he only plays in like 13 or 14 games and gets hurt and misses 2 or 3, I mean, you're going to be asking him to take a massive step forward. I do think he's going to take a step forward, but is he going to take a massive step forward and, start slinging the ball all around? I'm not really sure that's going to be the case, but I do like the over in passing yards. Another over that I like for him is going to be his rushing yards over. Last year, he had 139 carries for 784 yards and 10 touchdowns. His rushing prop this year is only 710. So unless you think the Eagles offense is going to go completely in a different direction and really sling it around, in which case you should be loving the over in the passing yards, I actually prefer the over in his rushing yards here again, rather than playing the over in the passing yards. Again, he has to stay healthy, but this is a number that he did last year in only 15 games. That means he was averaging over 50 yards rushing per game. So to get to 710 this year, he needs to play what? 14 games. So if he plays 14 games at the same kind of rushing ability he did last year, this is a number that he should get over. This is actually my favorite play of them all. Again, if you're only betting on whether or not he's going to stay healthy here for some of these, I would rather bet on the rushing yards than the passing yards here for Jalen Hurts. So PointsBet has this at minus 115 for an over 710.5 rushing yards. That's my favorite way to play any of these Jalen Hurts props here. Another interesting one, I don't really have a lean on it, but I just wanted to kind of throw it out there for you guys. 23.5 passing touchdowns, over under minus 115 on PointsBet. So last year, Jalen Hurts rushed for 10 touchdowns, but he only threw 16. So what we really got to think about is how much more do we think he's going to throw? How much of the offense is going to go away from him rushing the ball and towards him throwing the ball? And again, he did miss, 2 games last year? So again, if he started all the games, he'd probably be closer to 18 or 19 touchdowns. But again, still well short of the 23.5. This is a tough one for me to bet on because I am expecting a step forward. But do I want to put money on something that I'm not positive of? And that's the thing, is we have better bets and other things that we could take for minus 115 or even better prices. Hell, I would rather take the rushing yards than take the passing touchdowns here. Do I think he could go over it? I think he could crush this number if they decide to be a little more pass heavy this year, especially with A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith, Dallas Goedert as your pass catchers. Now, do I think that's definitely going to happen? I don't know. And that's the thing that I want to say. It's like, it's okay to say when you look at a bet, I don't know. I think he can, but I don't know. And if you say, I don't know, that means your money's better spent elsewhere. There are hundreds of things that we could bet on, maybe even thousands of things that we're going to be able to bet on before the season starts with all of these teams. Why would we take something that we're like, yeah, maybe, or yeah, we need to see something new happen, when there are ways that we could just bet on things that we're more sure of or have stronger opinions about? So I think Jalen Hurts goes over this 23.5. I think Eagles fans would be upset if he doesn't go over this 23.5. But with that being said, I don't think it's an absolute lock thing that we need to put money on. So I am avoiding the over 23.5 passing touchdowns. Now, if you want Jalen Hurts to win the MVP, which is a really interesting number here that I want to talk to you guys about, he's as high as 40-1 on PointsBet, plus 4,000, 40-1 on PointsBet to win the MVP. But he's as low as 20-1 on DraftKings, meaning only half the price. So DraftKings actually thinks a lot more of what we're going to get out of Jalen Hurts, or could get out of Jalen Hurts this year, than PointsBet does. If you play fantasy football, you guys will know that Jalen Hurts is a guy that every single pundit is talking about this year as the quarterback that could take that next leap forward. You know, we had Patrick Mahomes do it. We had Lamar Jackson do it. You know, we've had a lot of Joe Burrow last year. We've had a lot of young quarterbacks take that big leap. And this is the guy, especially in their second year. And this is the guy that a lot of people are kind of pinning their hopes on this year, of stepping up and becoming an elite level quarterback. Whether or not he can do it, I'm not going to sit here and say he can or he can't. I'm going to say that there's a lot of people that are expecting him to do it, which means that when you look at those MVP awards, you know, the 40-1 on PointsBet seems like the number that's more out of place than the 20-1 on DraftKings. Would I bet it at 20-1 on DraftKings? No, not at all. I think that's way too low. But I also think 40-1 is way too high. So I don't hate the idea of throwing a little bit of money. You know, again, you got one of those free bets for 20 or 50 bucks, something like that. You know, Jalen Hurts MVP at 40-1 over on PointsBet. I think that's a really good way to play that. So I like a little bit of a sprinkle on the Jalen Hurts over 710 rushing yards, minus 115 on PointsBet. And I also like Jalen Hurts MVP plus 4,000 on PointsBet. PointsBet is one of the sites that doesn't have the numbers for Jalen Hurts anywhere near as high as we see him on some of the other sites and projections out there. So let's go and talk about some of his pass catchers here. I'm not going to talk about any of the running backs because we're not 100% sure exactly how that backfield is going to play out. And if it plays out any way like it did last year, you're going to get multiple guys. The Eagles rushed for a ton of yards last year. Miles Sanders definitely going to be the lead guy, but Miles Sanders actually rushed, if I'm not mistaken, I have to double check on this, but I'm pretty sure he rushed for a few less yards than we got out of Jalen Hurts. Now, again, he was hurt for a little while, obviously, so that may have had something to do with it too. But at the end of the year, I think they ran for almost 2,500 yards, and you had like 5 or 6 guys that had a couple hundred yards in there for them. You know, guys like who they have last year, Boston Scott, Jordan Howard, you know, Miles Sanders, Jalen Hurts as well with his legs, Kenneth Gainwell, the running back / wide receiver kind of player that they had. All these guys got touches. All these guys are going to continue to get touches. So we're not going to really talk about the running back stuff here because there isn't anything that really stands out to me. But there are some interesting things with the pass catchers I wanted to discuss. So let's start with A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown plus 3,500 on Caesars, 35-1 to have the most receiving yards in the league. I don't really see him doing that unless this offense changes, like we had mentioned before. But if it does, this is a super talented guy. If he could stay healthy and on the field, this is a guy that could put up massive numbers. The over-under for him is 974.5 receiving yards, minus 115 to the over and the under on PointsBet. So Quez Watkins was the number 2 receiver behind DeVonta Smith last year, 647 yards for him. Jalen Reagor, 299 yards for him. So even combining those two, you only get like 76 receptions for 946 yards, I think is what it comes out to. The number for A.J. Brown is 974. Now, you did have, what did we get last year? 916 yards out of DeVonta Smith. So even their number 1 wide receiver last year didn't get over this number here that A.J. Brown is being asked to get, in 2022. Now, again, will they throw the ball more? Sure. You would figure a guy who's now got a year of being a quarterback under his belt, they're probably going to open up the offense a little bit more and, kind of let him sling it around a little bit more than he has. With that being said, is he going to sling it around enough to support 1, maybe 2,000-yard receivers? Because the number for DeVonta Smith is 900 yards. 899.5 is the number on PointsBet there, minus 115 also to the over and the under. I don't think you get A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith over. I don't think this offense is going to throw enough. I mean, again, he's only projected for 3,400 yards. 3,450 is what they're projecting him for. 17-game season, you're looking at like 200-plus yards a game, basically. In order for these guys to get over 1,000 yards, you probably need them to get at least 60 yards per game. If they're each getting 60, that's 120 of the total 200-ish yards that are being projected for Jalen Hurts this year. And, frankly, that's asking a lot. That's a lot. It's a big percentage of the volume that is going there. Over 30% each one of these guys would need in order to get, 30% AJ would need to get over 1,000. You probably need a little bit less, like 55. So maybe like 28% is what you would need, 27% or so to get DeVonta Smith over this number. So again, do I think one of these two guys can do it? Sure. If I had to choose between the two guys, I actually do think it would be A.J. Brown over DeVonta Smith, but 974.5 yards. It's more yards than any Eagle had last year. It's a big number for a guy who has some injury concerns as well. Again, 35-1. So, Caesars is actually giving him a decent chance to be the guy that leads the league in receiving yards. But I don't know. I just don't see A.J. Brown. I would rather play the under 974.5 yards. It's not a knock on his talent. It's more a knock on the offense and, kind of the durability that A.J. Brown has. So let's talk about DeVonta Smith since we kind of brought him up already. 899.5 receiving yards. That's his number, minus 115 over and under. 17 games last year, he had 64 catches for 916 yards and 5 touchdowns. So it took him every game last year as the number 1 wide receiver without a guy that he was competing with in A.J. Brown in order to get over that 900-yard mark as the number 1 wide receiver. Now he's going to be the number 2 wide receiver in an offense that does still have guys like Dallas Goedert and, will be using some of these other, secondary wide receivers that they had last year as well. Like I said, it's just tough for me to get to this number with DeVonta Smith. And again, not a knock on DeVonta Smith down. DeVonta Smith and A.J. Brown are 2 of the biggest stud young wide receivers in football right now. These guys are both unbelievably elite. If you traded Jalen Hurts for Patrick Mahomes tomorrow, I would probably take the over on both of these guys getting 1,000 yards. But the more that Hurts is going to run, the more that they're going to concentrate on the run with the running backs as well here in Philly. It's just not an offense last year, at least, that was conducive to putting up big passing numbers. So again, I'm not going to take the under here, but I'm going to be avoiding DeVonta Smith altogether because I just don't want to take any chances on whether or not he's going to have the big year. For DeVonta Smith to have the big year, what I really think needs to happen is an early injury to A.J. Brown or a massive change in the way that they run this offense, and probably still need A.J. Brown to get injured some point during the season where he becomes the number 1 wide receiver again, meaning DeVonta Smith. So if that doesn't happen, I don't see him getting over that 900 yards, and that's why I would rather play the under. Although, like I said, I'm kind of just avoiding this one altogether. So the last thing I want to talk about here is Dallas Goedert receiving touchdowns. So he only had 4 touchdowns in 2000. He only had 4 touchdowns in 2021. 4.5 is the number that he's being asked for on the receiving touchdowns here. Minus 115 to both the over and the under at PointsBet is the number that we're getting here. And I do kind of like the over here for Dallas Goedert. Again, with guys like A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith, and with the threat of the run from Jalen Hurts, they're going to be able to do a lot of things down there near the goal line because they're not going to have the traffic that they normally did when they get down into the red zone, concentrating on a guy like Dallas Goedert because the wide receivers weren't all that good. If you're going to single cover guys like DeVonta Smith and A.J. Brown, they're going to burn you. And I think what teams are going to do is they're going to have to keep those safeties back, which means there's room up the middle. And room in the middle is exactly where Dallas Goedert wants to be and wants to be able to roam. So I really like Dallas Goedert to go over 4.5 receiving touchdowns. I like the receiving touchdowns number more than I like the, yardage number for these other guys. And remember, this is a guy who has had bigger seasons than this before, even as a number 2 tight end. So Dallas Goedert over 4.5 receiving touchdowns. Definitely something that I would be interested in here today. So there you go, everybody. That wraps it up for our look at the betting odds for the Philadelphia Eagles for the 2022 season here at FTN Bets. Remember, the early bird pricing is still in effect over at FTN Fantasy. You guys can get over there right now. FTN Bets, FTN Daily, FTN Fantasy. Use promo code Benny. Saves you 20% off on any of our packages. And the early bird pricing will be going up by the end of this week. I think today might even be the day that it's going up. So lock in the lowest price of the season now. You're going to be paying another $30, $40 if you want to wait a week or two in order to get in here. So get in now. Start getting your draft prep ready over on Fantasy. Start getting ready for the, DraftKings and FanDuel tournaments and, all the other stuff on Prize Picks and all of our other partners over at FTN Daily. And start getting ready to make some of those bets. Drop in some of those futures bets right now and have everything in order for you to be able to step in there week 1 of the NFL season and make some good bets that can win you some good money over at FTN Bets. And remember, if you guys want to, go check out sleeper.com/FTN Bets. Put in $100. They will match that $100 with another 100, giving you $200 to play with, giving you a nice little start to your bankroll over there to try to win some money. And with that, this is Benny Ricciardi signing off for the FTN Bets cast here on FTN Bets.
Live from the new sports betting capital of the world.
You might be from Texas, but I'm from New Jersey.